first of all, I wanted to say thanks for joining. I think this is going to be a really fantastic episode. And congratulations on your recent launch of ParaSwap Delta. I recently read an article about it, and that's really fascinating stuff.
Thank you, thank you. I'm super excited to be here. Yeah, it was a great launch. I'm super happy about it. It's in in beta, sorry, and a new version should be coming very soon, where we're gonna open up access to all partners. So I'm super excited and looking forward for the next steps, and especially the V2.
So it's closed beta, it's not open beta at the moment.
It's open only to our user interface. We did that in purpose. First of all, because there will be a V2. We always had V2 in mind, which will come with likely break-in changes, like in the smart contract and for developers. So we thought that let's have it only open for our user interface and for our users, and then open up for other partners. That was the plan that we came up with.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. So, look, I think something like Paraswap is such a like an interesting technology. It's got so much complexity behind it, and I think it's really great to have you here to kind of talk all about it and to get into all those details. So, obviously, you're a DEX aggregator, and I think that's where that beauty of complexity comes into play. So, do you want to maybe talk a little bit on a high level how that aggregation is achieved? What are some of the technologies you used, and maybe what are some of the limitations that you've come across along the way?
Yeah, sure. So there are two main products for Parasol. There's the aggregator, as you know, actually three. The aggregator, there is ParaSwap Delta, which is an intent-centric product that uses ParaSwap API and ParaSwap smart contract, but also in V2 will be using other sources of liquidity. But it's a core ParaSwap product and ParaSwap limit holders RFQ that we can get into. But yeah, aggregation was really by far the biggest product so far we had. We processed over $80 billion with that. It's quite complex for sure. There's the on-chain part, so the system of the smart contracts, and you have the API side. And that comes with like a lot of fancy algorithms, fancy connections with the exchanges in real time. A lot of tech is being used. We try to also make it as simple as possible. I don't know how much technical you want me to go, but happy to like make it as technical as possible, but also as high level as
Yeah,
you.
let's get into it. Let's dive in. Let's
Okay. Yeah. Well, first, it was something that will like speak for everyone is the most of the code base is open source. So all the smart contracts are verified on chain that people can check how the transactions are being executed. On the backend side, we have a library called DexLib, which contains most of like all the logic for how do we integrate with exchanges. And the reason why we built DexLib is before it used to be only our team who built the connections to DEXs. And the way aggregators in general nowadays, at least modern aggregators, is if you want to get the price from, let's say, Uniswap, you can either use their smart contract and ask Uniswap, give me the price of one ETH to DAI, give me the price of one USDC to WBTC and all of that. But this is not scalable because this request of give me the price, or what we call in general get the price, is a very heavy call because it goes through like their order book, their ticks, and depends on each DEX has its
Sure, their
specificities.
own pools as well and all of that abstraction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are many operations behind the scenes. So what we do instead of doing this operation, and by the way, when you are an aggregator, if you're looking for a price for, let's say, one ETH to DAI, you need to know if maybe you should go through USDC to DAI, maybe you should go through USDT, maybe you should go through like two connectors, and it can be as complex as you may think. And the goal is to always maximize the return for the user. And between each leg, well, you will try to find the price for multiple dexes and get like a sample. So you can build metrics of prices here that you need to optimize, another metrics here, and so on and so forth. And then run some fancy algos. There are many possibilities. The most known is the shortest path algorithm, which is not what we use, but anyways, that's something that some aggregators use. And you try to get samples of prices for each time for every single DEX. So you can imagine how many calls you need to solicit those smart contracts, and full nodes are not designed to take that much load. It's just like not made for that. There are some attempts to improve the full node's performance, like by building more type of data access toolings that will make the response times faster. But I think no matter what they do, it's going to be always hard for aggregators to just like use this, what we call naive method. So what we do, instead of calling the price, we let the price come to us, or let the state of the liquidity come to us and put it on a regular database, in general, like an in-memory database, like a Redis. And then when you call for the price, instead of asking the full node, we don't solicit the full node at all in most of the time. We just query against our local store and gather samples in real time. So in a matter of few milliseconds, we can get most of the prices gathered, and then it will be a matter of running the algorithms to optimize the price, and then deliver the price to the end user. And all of this has to happen in a
Right.
reasonable time, like in like it's say a few hundred milliseconds. Sometimes you have the network latency and all of that, but yeah, the challenge is for aggregators is to deliver the best possible price, modulo gas, and also the shortest possible time.
Right. So yeah, I mean, of course, with something like Redis, like speed's not an issue. It's lightning fast, right?
Yeah.
But then isn't there a bit of caching going on between Redis and the data source itself? Because you still have to fetch that data to put it in Redis to have it available for
Yeah,
querying.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, 100%. And yeah, there's caching for sure in multiple layers, and also some full nodes like in Alchemy, I think, and Quick Node. They also have some caching built in. So if you ask for the
Right.
same thing within the same block, they will just use their cache. So they have also the smart built-in features like this. And here, the way, like let's say Uniswap, the most simple example you see in Uniswap V2, although it's almost now obsolete nowadays,
Yeah.
is you have like liquidity for two tokens, token A, token B. You have this formula: multiply balance times balance in a constants. What we do is we listen constantly every block for balance variations. So USD, let's say
Mm.
pool of ETH USDT, you would listen every block on events. Like there's a swap event, there is deposit liquidity, remove liquidity events, and those events come with parameters that will allow you to recompute just the delta. So you don't need to just do any RPC call. You just like get the initial state and then continuously calculate the delta, and do that for every DEX, but every DEX has its own logic. So X times Y
Yeah.
plus K is really, really simple. But for Uni V3, it's much more complex. You need to take into consideration like how the DEX works, balancer as well. Yeah, the lib is very interesting. It's open source. And for us, we used to do this work. And since DexLib, we ask now Dex teams to do that work for us. But it's worked really well. We didn't expect it to work well. That now we have so many PRs that we don't have time to review. So maybe we created another type of problem, which is, I think, a good
Yeah.
one. But also, we built a very good relationship with the other DEX builders who now like have ParaSwap DexLib as a reference, so they can use it also with other aggregators. If they want them to integrate and they don't have that system, they can tell them, hey, just look at DexLib and you can get a reference implementation that you can either copy or use like a rewrite if you use another language.
Right. That's really cool. And congrats. It's really nice to have like, hopefully useful PRs, not just like updating README and and stuff like
It's
that.
quite useful. Yeah, I think is one of the biggest. I haven't did any stats, but like if you look at the stars and the activity on the Dex lib, is like one of the most used libs in the Web3 space.
Oh wow, that's really cool. And what's it written in?
It's in TypeScript.
TypeScript. Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, not the most convenient technology, I would say, for a backend, but in terms of performance, but convenience in terms of productivity, it's by far the simplest one that can be used, can be more or less safer because you still have a typing system. But yeah, productivity is unheard of. I know some teams, or even some team members in ParaSwap would love to use like a Rust or something like that. But you can,
Yeah.
yeah, assume that you will be dividing your productivity at least by two, even though the code will be more robust, the performance of the backend will be much, much, much better. But yeah, iterations, which I think matter much more if you're a startup, will I would not say hit a wall, but yeah, it will be not the same as we have right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think like TypeScript is an amazing technology and is kind of like it's popular enough that mostly everyone's kind of comfortable with it, so they're happy to kind of as opposed to something like Rust, which Rust is it's amazing. I haven't used Rust much. I have a friend that talks about Rust and goes like, hey, I can't really write Rust at work, but whenever I get a chance to do like a fun project, I'm just gonna go full in on Rust. So I guess that it's got this like following of people looking to hyper optimize every single line of code. Um, which I like that about it. I don't love the fact that it's got a higher barrier to entry and it does
Yeah,
take a lot more getting used to. But one of the cool things is that you don't have to worry about, because TypeScript only gives you type safety in your IDE. Like
yeah,
on
exactly.
compile, it doesn't care about it. Like you could still go around these safeguards if you really wanted to, but it's good enough.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I saw many uses of TypeScript as if it was like just a JS with many any types, which is not really the most, yeah, I would say convenient thing. But yeah, as you said, it's an arbitrage at the end between productivity and quality of deliveries.
Yeah. Oh, I just imagine that the back in the day where we didn't used to have TypeScript and we didn't like web dev was such a weird, such a
Yeah,
weird
I was
space,
there.
right? Yeah. Like the pipeline of creating like a front end framework, like even let's say 10, 15 years ago versus today, it's such a different set of skills. It's just mind blowing how far it's come.
Indeed, indeed. Not to mention the AI tools we have nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I actually saw a funny video today about the guy using Claude AI, and then there's like an AI to use in VS Code. I forget his name. Is like Copilot, but on steroids. It's supposed to be like really cool.
Cursor,
And huh?
cursor, like
Yes,
cursor,
that
cursor. Yeah.
that's the one. I never used it. I've heard great things about it, but then I started seeing like meme videos coming up, be like, "Can you center this red box? Can you please center this red box?" Eventually centers the red box, but now the blue box is out of frame. It's like it's one of the experience that I've personally had with AI tools or using AI to write code for me is that I save time by not writing the code myself, but I feel like a lot of the times I actually waste time by literally arguing with the machine. And I'm like getting really angry. It's like, no, you're just stupid. No, just do the.
Uh,
So I think I don't know. It's not at the level yet where I can confidently let it just do stuff. But I haven't used something like Cursor, so maybe that's much better. Have you had
it's
any
nice.
experience with it?
Yeah. Because now I could code much less than what I used to. The devs who work with us are much smarter than me in writing code. I'm more like on other topics and product and stuff like that. But when I need something urgently, so I don't bother anyone, I will just like open my cursor and write the code myself. But yes, you still need to do a lot of babysitting. It's not as magic as it seems from the outside. Much better than Copilot, I would say. You can still have some conversations, but my small experience would be like I would write half of the code and cursor would write like a Claude behind cursor would write like the other half, kind of like if you want
Right.
something that works.
Yeah, you could get, I guess you could get a working, well, sometimes it doesn't work, but you could get a working prototype with your
Yeah, for
prompt,
sure.
and then you just kind of have to optimize and iterate on that and kind of actually make it like good and optimized code. Um, it's
Yeah.
funny how a lot of companies feel like AI, well, they sell AI as like the product that solves everything. And that's when I start taking a bit of an issue with it. Even the software that I'm using to record this conversation, Zencaster, right? It's a great
Yeah.
platform on most parts. It's, it records like VoIP quality. They have their own like protocols for that. But one product that they have is they have a solution going like, oh, you know what? You don't have to edit your shorts anymore. Just use our AI, and it will create like 10 shorts out of this conversation. So I've tried it a couple of times, and they're just dog shit quality, right?
Ah, yeah.
Like it doesn't work for that. We also have. I've used one for the CRM that we work with HubSpot. Used it for like they've recently introduced AI as well to kind of like do stuff for you. And whenever you ask it, hey, can you summarize this record for me? And half of the time gets it right, half of the time goes like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Um, and I just feel like people have been going really hype on AI to the point where the products are really being pumped at a super rapid pace where quality control is lacking a little bit. Um, and I feel like maybe we need to take a step back and just kind of understand these limitations. Like Yeah.
That's a good point. I think if once you understand the limitations, the you take more advantage and use much better the AI tools than if you take for granted what they do and get disappointed at the time every time you get an outcome that doesn't match your quality expectations. But if you know exactly the limitations, you will use it to the maximum possible extent. So yeah, you would know how to use it much better if you understand it, how it works more or less.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's definitely improved my workflow, and it's definitely saving me time. But that's because I know what to use it for. Like if I have a manual a task or like a predictable or iterative task to do, like, hey, I want you to take like these 30 properties and convert them into an enum or an interface for me or
Yeah,
something like that. Like very good for that. I don't have to spend like 20 minutes writing that. It can just do it for me.
yeah. Cool, cool.
So I also wanted to talk to you a lot about MEV. I feel like also with your Delta ParaSwap Delta, you mentioned that you have like reduced like minimized MEV risk. Um, do you want to expand a little bit on how that's possible before we get into like MEV?
Sure, yes. But the way intent-centric products works is, first of all, well, there's a improved UX, like abstract gas and all of this, but also the actors who are behind the scenes, we call them agents. The other people in the ecosystem call them also solvers, fillers for fillers. But I would say the most dominant term is solvers. We can get into why we call them agents, but anyways, it's the same thing at the end. So those actors, they compete for providing the best possible price. And also, they are supposed to, I'm saying supposed to because enforcement mechanisms are still something that being figured out, but at least now they rely mostly on trust. But in any ways, we can assume that this is something kind of enforced or will be enforced to use MEV resistant tools because they are judged on the quality of the execution post trade. So right now there is one agent or one solver is the ParaSwap API that provides solutions which are like optimized prices for users, and the user will sign just I want to trade token A for token B without
Hmm.
caring if it's going to be settled on chain, if there is a market maker behind, and all of that. They just want the best possible price for them, for themselves. And the actor behind the scenes, the hero of the ParaSwap API or the solver, will not only provide an optimal price, but also provide an optimal execution. And execution here in the context of on-chain execution is trying to avoid MEV or minimize MEV as much as possible. That's why we have no other choice but to use MEV resistant tools. Like we use Blink, but there's also Flashbots and many other tools, MEV blocker and other tools that don't put the transactions on the mempool. They send it directly to the builders, and so it's not visible. It's only visible on the Explorer or visible on chain once the
Right.
transaction is finalized.
That's super interesting that you completely avoid the mempool. I didn't even realize that was a thing you could do. I thought by default everything just sits in the mempool waiting for it to be picked up by a validator.
In theory, yes, but at the end, what is the mempool? Mempool is it's a common memory that multiple here builders share. So when you send the transaction, you broadcast it to multiple listeners who are in general the builders or maybe the MEV attackers. But this memory is not the standard. So my mempool in my full node may not be your mempool, maybe it's someone else's mempool. There's a big overlap, but it's not 100%. But here, instead of sending it to everyone mempool, we send it to a private mempool that nobody can see, or only those builders would be able to see.
Right. That's a very good way of going around it for sure. Because I feel like it's always been a big limitation, like MEV attacks, have been a big limitation of DeFi. So it's nice to see that you have like a good way of going around that. Um, Again on the MEV, I was thinking like I know like a little bit about it, but I'm not like an MEV expert. So I'm hoping that you'll help me with the question I have now. It's when when you're running a validator, or let's say let's take a maybe just for the sake of the example, let's take a proof of work chain or something, and you're part of a mining pool rather than an individual miner. do you still in theory have access to the mempool? Do you still have access to the transactions even though you're not running your own dedicated node?
Well, actually, MEV used to be called Minor Extractable Value. It was back in the days where Ethereum was still proof of work. And because the transaction, there was no PBS like builder validator separation. It was just the miners who were like where they get what who they get the transaction. And of course, yeah, they are the first party to see the transaction, and everyone had those stuff. There was a known paper. It used to be called Flash Boys 2.0, written in 2019, and which gets through what is MEV and how MEV works and different strategies that miners may be using to extract the MEV at that time. But yeah, short answer is definitely. I mean, as long as there is a decentralized type of block validation, there will be MEV. There's no other way. This doesn't exist right now in some of the L2s like Optimism, anything OP-Stack, Arbitrum, because simply they have a centralized sequencer that is the like there's one party, one entity that takes the transaction of everyone and is responsible for the ordering. Like your transaction came first, another transaction came second. The order is going to be respected, but with a system that is completely distributed and there is no central party like Ethereum and other Solana and other chains, where whoever bids more on the gas, like whoever pays more, validators, miners, you name it, will be included first. So in this case, I see your transaction, I can front run you, pay outbid you in gas, and get jump in front of you in the order for validation, and that's what happens. So it doesn't at the end matter as long as there is decentralization between codes. That's a problem we'll be creating, which is avoided now by some type of centralization, like in the L2s.
Yeah, I remember seeing some like wild application of MEV and front running with people going like getting a flash loan for like $1.5 million and then paying like 500 grand in gas fees and then just making like 30 million or something on a trade. Like it's insane
Yeah.
how like amazingly talented some people are when it comes to this sort of stuff. Um,
Yeah. And I mean, as long as there is money, talent, I would say, is not something that that's gonna that we're gonna be missing. Yeah, for sure.
Sure, I mean definitely like greed plays an element into it, but you gotta have to like have a certain like analytical mind to kind of be able to realize the exploitable parts of a system. And in a way, I think like that makes that system more robust in the long run. It creates it, it gets people like you and teams like yours just to create MEV resistant solutions because it's been tested. We've been there. We know where the attack vector is.
Yeah, 100%. I think also this
Nice.
is something you can see in traditional finance, where because here in crypto we've been always focused on like how we can, at least in the aggregation in DEX space, how we can provide the user with the best possible price. But nobody was paying, or very little people was paying that much attention to the execution. But in traditional finance, it's very important the quality of the execution. There's even a term called just best execution, that goes into the quality of the execution itself and optimization of the execution. So this is where we are right now, which I think is a sign of maturity in the space. So it's like very important for us to solve problems that weren't solved before, but we can clearly see like billions of dollars being extracted every single year. So it became a big topic, and some people are solving the problem while also making a business out of this profit, out of solving those problems, which I think is, as you said, is a very good thing.
Yeah, 100%. So you've mentioned that you've seen obviously growth, and we've all seen growth in this industry. Do you have any numbers out the top of your head, like maybe how much DeFi growth or volume have we seen in the last few years? Maybe.
Well, I remember when I was a co-founder of the DeFi group in France, in Paris. I used to live in Paris before. It's called DeFi France.
Oh,
The
nice.
very first meetup, it was in 2019, 5 years ago. And I had a talk to like sell DeFi to like the audience, that DeFi is great and you should get involved
Yeah.
right now, which was really, really small at that time. And I remember I showed the graph of the TVL, and it was at 600 million. uh, Look at this, like 600 million obviously was 600 million was nothing at that time, but like we're heading to the billion. And I'd say 5 years later, it was, I think, around the same time in 2019. And I think now we should be at like tens of billions of dollars. The number changes every day, and you can see it in DeFi Llama. But yeah, I think only Aave should be at around 20 or $25 billion in TVL, and add Lido, Maker, and other protocols. Yes, it's an amazing growth, and it's not a surprise that even government and big corporations like BlackRock are super interested in DeFi and like mentioning DeFi publicly and intentions on building on DeFi, and some of them have
Hmm.
already started. So I think, yeah, the growth made now DeFi as a category in crypto as a major, let's say, finance category itself, but not just a niche as it used to be like 5 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. And it's fantastic to see it, developing to this extent. What do you think is the main appeal for both individual and institutions to explore DeFi, when you keep in mind that you also have CeFi, which is traditionally the more risk averse solution?
Um, well, I think some they have like straightforward solutions to their problems, like building on modern financial rails instead of COBOL type of
Yeah.
of infrastructure built in the 70s. I heard an interesting interview recently with the CEO of Adyen, the payment company based in the Netherlands, and they were talking about adoption of stablecoins for international payments. So that's also a very straight use case of DeFi. Especially, I would say stablecoins is maybe the parts that has the most straightforward value proposition for the financial industry and fintech, for those kind of use cases, for forex, for international payment, like large payments where they can be settled immediately. But also a funny thing, yesterday I was trying to make a payment, like a few $1,000s, like tens of thousands of dollars, a euro, sorry. And I had to call my bank just to notify them that I'm gonna make the payments. Can you please allow me to do these payments? And then they say, okay, you have a limit. You need to call another service to ask them to upper the limits. So I called that service. They asked me three questions. I made a mistake in one question. I think just like they misheard me or something. They blocked my accounts. I had to call another service. I spent like hours calling one person, another person, just so that they can allow me to make a transfer of my own money to another party. And the same day, yesterday morning, I was doing some transactions on chain where some of them, like in Base or Arbitrum, they took like a few seconds where you just push a button, just to make sure you have a secure setup, and that's all. So I think DeFi and like at least stablecoins here would play a major role in transforming the banking industry for the best the user experience of their users. So I think it's just a matter of time before this will be adopted by the larger banks because they can clearly see that they can reduce costs. For instance, here I talked to like 5 or 6 persons. They were great, they were very helpful, but they could have been doing something else just instead of
Sure.
just like trying to help me with my simple problem. So I think yes, in terms of cost reduction, that's how like businesses are driven anyways. Will be something I would expect it to happen just in the next maybe 3, 4, 5 years maximum. But also we see some experiments that has been going for a few years, whether like a BlackRock or a big corporation were trying to build like an Aave pool. There was a product of Aave called something I forgot, but anyways, like it was a pool where you need to KYC in order to participate in all the
Hmm.
parties at KYC. But if you think about it, it's like a consortium, which is like how finance works at the end. And like the larger corporations, they have open consortiums between them, so they trade between them and they exchange value between them. And like Swift, for instance, it's an example. And it didn't took off, but I think now with the technology we have right now versus what we had in 2020, 21, especially with L2s, I think this would be much more convenience for them to iterate faster and to reach a point where they can convince their hierarchy or their board that this is the way to go, where we want to trade on chain, we want to earn yield. We can, instead of using our old school technology, we can use Aave, we can use protocol XYZ. We also had an experiment with ParaSwap. We call it ParaSwap Hub for trading.
Hmm.
So instead of them using direct liquidity pools, they can trade against our market makers, which is the other protocol I mentioned in the beginning. It's called
Right.
Augustus RFQ. It's a very bad name, but anyways, it's a way to
Augustus, is it?
Augustus RFQ. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and the idea is that you can trade with market makers. Market makers are KYC, AML, and all of that. The traders as well, so they can trade with each other, and they can have access to on-chain existing on-chain liquidity without having to do anything extra. Because those market makers, they will hedge, they will arbitrage either on dexes or on centralized exchanges, but they can bring you exactly the liquidity you may have if you were to trade on a public pool, but without the risk of you going to trade in Uniswap. Although we can debate if that's really a risk or not. But to them, their compliance teams, they estimate that they don't want to trade directly on a DEX because maybe at some point behind the scenes there was a Lazarus group or there was a group that is non-compliant that doesn't match their rules. So this was a solution, but since also these guys move super fast, like every iteration takes 3 to 6 months, we decided to make a pause. But maybe I think this is something that could really become big in the next few years.
So would that be more like an order book type of scenario?
It's an RFQ, but it also has an order book feature. At least the experiment was just RFQ based type of trading. But yeah, the protocol can do order book as well.
That would be that. Yeah, that'd be massive. I'm guessing like that you'd have very little slippage at that point, and it'd be a lot more predictable and a lot more. Yeah, that's really cool. It's really cool to hear that. But how did you get into like what DeFi in crypto? Like, what attracted you the most about it in the first place to get to where you are today, working with these protocols?
Yeah, well, in 2017, I was also participating in those ICOs and stuff, and I used to use Ether Delta. If you remember, it was a horrible UX. It's super slow and buggy all the time, but it was used. Like people were trading tens of millions of dollars every single day. And since to me, centralized exchanges was just like a hack because the tech doesn't exist to build DEXs and is like the worst of the two worlds. We have banks that are not banks, that don't have the toolings of banks, but they are not decentralized. So, well, whatever. So to me, it was just a matter of time before we move on into DEXs and the technology wasn't there. Um, so I decided to at least start experimenting because we have a product that has clearly demand. This product is not serving its users very well. So there is an opportunity to just build something better and distribute it in a better way. So in theory, I should capture that market.
Yeah.
Not easily, but yeah, I mean, reasonably well. And at that time, even there was no Uniswap. This is late. This is in 2018, early 2018, mid 2018. There was no Uniswap. Bancor, 0x, Kyber were just like at the beginning. But moving forward with my research, they launched. They went to production at late 2018. So I was like, okay, maybe let's not reinvent the wheel because I can see these guys are super promising. They launched their product, but the volumes are kind of small and there's still some work to be done. So maybe why not build like an aggregator that will capture the liquidity of everyone. So if each have a million, in theory, it's like you have a pool of 5 million, and build something for any user, like a Coinbase type of products, which is super simple, where it has like a nice onboarding, so anyone can use. And in theory, it should be simpler if done right than a Coinbase, for instance, which was a
Right.
very, very naive approach, and it didn't work at all.
Very optimistic too.
Exactly, yeah, because well, DeFi, nobody heard about DeFi at that time. I even had a hard time convincing my friends to join me. Like everyone look at me as like this guy is taking high risk and getting into something that nobody heard of. Whatever. Some of them joined me later, anyways. But yeah, the thing is, we launched in 2019, and yeah, but yeah, to answer your question, what got me to DeFi is this passion about crypto and belief that DeFi is the future, and the way we were trading crypto was just a temporary hack because we were lacking the tools.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a great story as well. I think like the ideal of having DeFi be as simple as something like Coinbase, I think that's definitely something that's achievable. I think it's also something that is not only achievable, but I feel that it's bound to happen. Like these technologies get better every day, and chains get faster, and transaction fees get smaller and smaller. I'm just wondering at which point are we going to see that DeFi or DEXs get more efficient and cheaper and easier to use than centralized exchanges. I think there's probably in my head, there's like a case, obviously, for both of those to exist. I think is generally cheaper and more convenient to transact, well-known pairs on stuff like, Binance or whatever, but you have a lot more to gain in arbitrage and in trading smaller cap coins on dexes. How do you feel about like that distinction?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Also, to be realistic, yeah, not everyone will have a self-custodial wallet and will know how to efficiently secure that wallet. Like, I don't see many of my friends, my family, like my mother would not never do that. So I think there is an audience. I hope, yeah, I'm not exaggerating at least, but I think, yeah, the majority of people will be like that because people don't want to think too much about the tech in using a wallet and securing a wallet. It's still kind of technology. Although there is some interesting temptations to improve that, like with account abstraction, with
Mm.
some protocols that try to make it like a self-custodial wallet, but you can access it only by login password, which is I think is amazing. So I hope this will take off, but if not, still people like to call someone if things go wrong, and they would like to have like a customer support, something like a Coinbase. But if I tell you like this is in your wallet and you are under control 100% and there's nobody to call if something goes wrong, I think it's very hard to sell this narrative to the majority of the Earth population because that's not how people expect. People have other things to worry about and like to have banks and like to have people to talk to in case something goes wrong, in case like they don't understand something or they need some kind of support, which is very hard to deliver in a purely non-custodial fashion. Even though we can still
Oh
provide
yeah.
technical support, but you cannot match the level of support or control, I would say, of banks. Although I'm maybe biased, but I would still always encourage people to go more on self custody. But I understand if each time my friends who are not in crypto at all, they would ask me the question, I would always give them options like, okay, you want to learn more, you want to understand more about money, about this is your funds, better to read this article or like use a Gnosis Safe, a Ledger, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't want to think about it, you just want to buy this weird meme coin and expect it to 100x, go to Binance, go to Coinbase. Okay, you'll be safe, but be careful because these stories happened in the past. No exchange is 100% safer. But also, if you think about it, that person, if they don't know how to secure their wallet, they're not safer neither because they can lose their fund just because they
Yeah.
haven't secured their wallet, or maybe they put everything in their computer and lost it, or their phone, and all of that. So I think yes, there is a often a trade-off between how far the user wants to go to understanding how things work, and I believe they should because it's their money that's there, and convenience. So yeah, I would still expect to be realistic
Mm.
that both will exist forever because they serve different type of customers.
Yeah, for sure, and appeal to very different needs as well. Like you've pointed it out, it is just like some of them prefer freedom, and the other ones prefer convenience, right? And like, what is your goal here, right? Because the ideal, in my head, the ideal, if let's say like DeFi is getting super mainstream, is like freedom that people are not even used to. Like you were saying before, you had to make this transfer, so you had to call up your bank, say that you're going to make the transfer, and then you had to go to all these hoops to access your own money, right? Rather than like, dude, it's your money. You should be able to do with it whatever you want without the government or the bank or anyone having a say in what you're going to do with your funds. The same way, like no one should have a say about what you're going to do with your body or whether you want to tattoo or whether you want to, take certain substances. I feel like it just goes with the philosophy of self sovereignty that human beings should have. Like we don't need We don't need a big brother to tell us, hey, you can only spend, oh, you want to take some cash out? Yeah, that'll be £300 that you can only take today. If you want to take out more from the ATM, come back tomorrow and I'll give you more money. And you should be grateful for that. I love that philosophy and I want to see it happen. I want to see people, being in charge of their own finances. I don't fully know exactly when or how it's going to happen. And I'm not sure if people are even ready for that level of freedom.
Yeah, I would say people often like to have more freedom, and that system, I think, is just imposed on us. It's not that we choose to give this power to banks. Because yesterday I was talking to a person that I was making a transfer to, like a seller of an object, and he had also the same intuition. Like they are putting roadblocks for your money. So that person is not in crypto, is not at all in our space. So I think human beings tend to like freedom. It's just that when a system is imposed on us, we tend to just adapt and take it for granted. And you can see that also if you are in a country that doesn't have democracy. It's not that people don't like democracy in that country. It's just that they were born in that system and they got used to it. And as a human nature, we tend to just adapt and accept whatever reality is imposed on us. And but I think yes, the role of in politics, the militants, like the freedom militants, will try to like push these narratives and convince people that hey, careful, they are taking your rights from you. I think also in our space, role of the crypto community is to also educate everyone that this is their money, this is their funds, and also it's very tied to freedom and democracy. If the country becomes like too powerful to control your money, they will also control you as a person. And that's just the fact and the reality, I think, that we have seen many times, in, especially in dictatorships.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like my thought instantly went to North Korea, where every single aspect of a person's life is heavily controlled, including what they do with their money, what they spend it on, their internet. Like, did you know that they don't have access to like the regular internet? They have their own version of the internet, which includes like entertainment, which includes like they specially crafted websites like video streaming services like YouTube, but obviously like communist YouTube, and stuff like that, just to kind of provide the illusion that people are free to have access to this entertainment, which like really reminds me of 1984. Like it's uncanny, and
Oh,
obviously that also goes to how like what they can do with their own money with their own funds. So maybe something like DeFi will end up helping the individual assert their own control over that to the point where they'll realize that they're being held hostage in a system that's not created for their benefit. Um, I I was born in Romania. I lived there up until I was 18, and then I moved to the UK. And I didn't catch, the communist side of Romania. I was born in '94, so after that by 5 years. But my parents lived in communism, and my grandparents also, lived in during communist times. And um, it's wild the kind of stuff that people had to go through in order to just do the very basic things. Like they would have to go through to queue to get their allowance of like oil, like cooking oil or gas for the car. If you had even plate numbers on your car, you couldn't drive on Sundays. If you had odd number plates, you couldn't drive on
oh,
Saturdays. Um,
oh.
like you can easily see how a totalitarian government can completely change the human spirit. Um, and I am a little bit concerned, I have to say, about this technology being used for CBDCs, because CBDCs could easily be implemented in a way that it could strip away freedom. If you're familiar at all with China's system for like social scoring, like that
Yeah.
thing just scares me. I think it's just one of the worst ideas we've had.
Yeah, I think in the US I saw a lot of pushback. I haven't saw what happened in the EU. The only thing in EU is too complex that for something for simple stuff to pass. So I think we're still far away from having something like that. But yeah, it's definitely true that having a central party that has access to everything you do is it's super scary. And now we take democracy for granted. But history shows that whatever I would say populations get as like a the big achievements may not last forever. So I think yes, people got to be careful. I totally agree with you that CBDC gives so much power to governments, and here especially a central government of governments that can
Yeah.
be a bit tricky to expect a good outcome to come from it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it would still be, up to the people to realize these things. I feel like, society at scale can only really be influenced when there's an imminent threat, right? Like this is exactly how
Yeah.
totalitarian governments get formed. Oh, look, there's this war, there's these bad guys coming here to kill us. Therefore, we have for a very short amount of time, we need to, impose these rules, and we all work together to kind of, face this threat together, right? And it's all bullshit. Like that's not
That's how
even
it
true for the
starts.
most part. Yeah, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
So I think as long as we no longer have any kind of, wars, large scale wars happening, I don't think there's a big risk of that making a comeback. So I think also people, I want to see that we've learned from the past and that we have the power to kind of, foresee these issues with these technologies before they happen and to do the right thing. But yeah, yeah, you never know really.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, we diverged there a little bit from we
Yeah,
digressed a
yeah,
bit
yeah.
from
Now, I wanted
ParaSwap.
to say something, like not to diverge more, but like I love Romania. I go there almost every year,
Oh
and
really?
this year we go in twice because my fiance is also from Romania, from Bucharest. And yeah,
Oh
I heard
wow.
also a lot of stories before in the communist period, but it's an amazing country. Like I really love it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Have you traveled much? Have you gone like to the mountains or to the Carpathian Mountains at
Yes.
all?
Yes, yes, not the Carpathians, but we went to Peleș, to how to say Brasov, Rushnov, and all this region.
Oh,
It's
nice.
something we do every year. Like each time we go to Bucharest, we stay for a few days, then we go to ski to Sinaia, and that's that
Mm-hmm.
region. And yeah, it's really amazing. Especially Romania is really like if you go outside of Bucharest, because I feel like there's two Romanias: the Bucharest, the metropolitan city, and the outside. And the outside, I think, is much more interesting.
Yeah, it's like fully it's kind of wild, right? Like it's right smack in the central of Europe, but there's still about, I think, only about 50 to 55% urbanized. So the rest of it, you're gonna have,
Yeah.
villages, you're gonna have rural areas, you're gonna have like the forests and stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting place for sure. I actually have some like distant relatives in Brasov,
Ah,
so
nice.
that's interesting. Yeah,
A good place, yeah.
yeah, yeah, nice. So do you go there like in the winter or more like in the
Yes, yes,
summer?
we go for Christmas, and this year will be interesting because our baby boy will have a ceremony for his name, and for the first time, we're gonna cut his hair. I'm looking forward for it, and I haven't understood yet exactly how the ceremony goes. It's but it's like kind of religious, but here it's not gonna be religious. It will be just like family gathering, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe I guess you should be familiar with it, and yeah,
I'm not. Is it like a baptism?
it's not a baptism. Yeah, it's like the first ceremony to give a name to the boy, but it's not on like a church. It's the family gathering. It has a name, but I forgot, to be honest. But I'm not super familiar with Christian religious details. But it's quite interesting for me. I'm more interested like in being like with the family and all the food and the drinks that I have always in Romania. But I'm also interested like in cutting the hair of my boy because it's growing, and I'm like to my girlfriend, please let's do it now. She's like, no, we have to wait for the ceremony because it's super important. But frankly, the parties in Romania are always amazing, either with family or with friends. So it's something I always love, and the food and the drinks are really amazing. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. Have you ever tried palinka?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Palinka, the sarmale,
So-
yeah, all the keftele, oh yeah, all the big foods. Yeah, I'm super familiar with.
oh wow, that's really cool. I think it's called because you said is the giving like naming the baby boy. That's usually called botez, which is literally baptism. But I don't recall the cutting of the hair, so I'll need to actually like
Yeah,
make a
yeah,
note
yeah.
to look into it, and I'll
It's
let you
like the
know.
second stage or something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really. obviously it's a Christian country and it's an Orthodox Christian country, but I
Yes.
don't remember many of the customs and stuff. Like we do Christmas here, obviously, because um, the UK also does Christmas. Um, but yeah, like some of these things you kind of tend to forget in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I just get them from like when my parents call me up and go like, hey, it's this holiday, and I'm like, oh wow, right, okay. And it's kind of really interesting because like it's obviously still a big thing for them because they live there, but for me
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, it's that thing that happens there, but like here, being like in a city where everyone has their own celebrations and their own little like reality tunnel. It's interesting to see how like it doesn't reflect to what they feel and what they think. But yeah, that's really cool. Let me know how you find skiing in Romania.
Yeah, I do in Sinaia. Sinaia, I think I like it. There is another ski resort, but Sinaia, I think, is like small for me, not like a super expert. And I learned quite fast. Last time I went, it took me like just few like back and forth, and I was feeling great. The guy also, the monitor was really good. So yeah, I like it. It's small in size and nice.
Nice. There's this. I just want to recommend it to you. Let me try quickly find it. There's this cool spa. Well, it's a spa slash swimming pool club in Bucharest. It's opened recently. My cousin's been there, and he says like it's absolutely amazing. I haven't had a chance to go. I'm just gonna pull up the name because I think if you go there, you have to try it out. It's like apparently it's supposed to be like really really cool. Um, Let me see. Oh, it's called Therme. T H
Terme.
E
Okay.
yeah, THERME. I'm just gonna drop it in the message as well. It's supposed to be really nice.
Yeah, yeah, looks so.
Yeah, maybe
Terme.
like a Therme. Yeah, I'm planning to go there as well next time I go, so I'll be checking that out too.
Okay.
But yeah, fantastic. I didn't know you do Romanian holidays. That's very cool.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's this year was the first time outside of winter, and I saw discovered another type of. It was just Bucharest, another type of Bucharest in spring. It's another taste. It's really cool. Like it, like the vibe, and we met also a lot of Christina's friends. So and also some of them also had babies, so it was fun to see them and their new little family. So yeah, it's quite nice in like
Oh,
outside
nice,
of
man.
winter. But also winter in
Congratulations.
Bucharest is weird because sometimes it's like a -10, -15, and sometimes like the quite opposite. The last two years ago, I think Portugal was like 15, 16 degrees, and Bucharest was like 19, 20, 21.
Oh
That's
wow.
also something I found fascinating about Bucharest, where you can have like summer in winter that lasts only for 2, 3 days. And then the next day, it's like winter and snow. Something I saw, I think, only in Denver so far. But Denver is maybe more extreme because the same day you can have summer being short and t-shirts, and the evening it's snowing, but really, really snowing. So that's I think it's fascinating. This type of cities.
Do you get much snow in Lisbon?
I think maybe it snowed once in history or something like this. No, it's it's
Wow.
like I mean, literally in t-shirt the whole year. It's very rare that I put like a jacket for cold. It's really really rare. Maybe January, February maximum. You can have like let's say 2/3 of the time where it's cold. But here, yes, it's in general a warm weather where most of the time it's sunny and yes, I mean it's quite warm.
No, that sounds like the dream. Like living in the UK, what you just said is like music to my ears.
Yeah, I
um,
lived in Paris before, so yeah, I can relate.
yeah. So you said something. I just wanted to go a little bit back to ParaSwap because you've said something, and it's also in your white paper about gas abstraction. Do you want to expand a little bit on how gas abstraction works, and what are the benefits of it? Obviously.
Yes. Well, it has to do a lot with user experience because it's happened to me a few times. Sometimes I want to make a trade on a wallet that I received, let's say a payment USDC, and I want to trade that USDC for ETH or something, often you need to have gas, and that means that you need to like either bring it from another wallet or go to a centralized exchange or use a fiat on ramp. It's a big hassle. That's like a practical case for even for DeFi natives or crypto natives, but also for the broad audience. If you want to have users from Robinhood, from Revolut, come and use DeFi, no, it's still very hard. If you still ask them to load a wallet, put some ETH on that wallet, understand what is gas, and understand also that gas can vary in price. So now you pay that amount, tomorrow you pay another amount. It's so super complex. The onboarding
Mm,
is not convenient, but frankly, why people should care in the first place if they're not technical or super into like the technicalities of Web3 and DeFi. In my opinion, they should not care much. What they need to do is, I want to trade token A for token B, or I want to buy that token X, and I push a button and I buy that token, and that's it. They should not think what's behind the scene. Same way that when you use Revolut or Robinhood, you don't think, is this a native app? Is it built with iOS, with Swift? Is it built with native? Is it built? There's a AWS behind or Google Cloud?
right.
Nobody asks those questions because simply nobody cares. People just want to fulfill their needs. And abstracting the gas is one big step into improving the user experience. That's the main purpose of it.
And how does it work without having them without them having to pay the gas? Like who ends up paying for the gas then?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, somebody has to pay it at some point, of course. And there are multiple possibilities. So in the case of ParaSwap Delta, the winning agents is the one who's going to get the right to execute the trade. And when they do so, they will pay the gas on behalf of the user. And also, obviously, since this gas is paid anyways, it's included in the price. So if you buy, let's say, ETH with USDC, if ETH worth whatever, let's say 3K and gas is $10, it will be 3K minus 10 that the user will receive at the end, and the agent is going to pay $10 equivalent or 10 USDC, or sorry, like 10 whatever token you're receiving worth of it to the Ethereum blockchain or whatever blockchain is used.
Right. Oh, that's a smart way. So it gets subtracted from the value that they're looking to swap.
Yep.
That's and if
But
that
there are also the
value.
cases, yeah, excuse me, there are also the cases
Uh-huh.
where with more professional, because now it's part of API, it's an aggregator at the end, it's like executing your trade on chain. But also in V2, we'll have more market maker type of agents who can literally just give you a price and not have you pay any gas at all, because the price already discounts the gas and in a different way than an aggregator, because an aggregator would just estimate how much this transaction will cost, because it's going to go on chain, it's going to use Balancer, Uniswap, you name it. But for them, it goes directly from their wallets. And the price they give you already includes the gas, already includes their profit, because they will be making some kind of arbitrage in Binance or Kraken or
Mm-hmm.
something like this. So the level of abstraction is even higher. So we don't even need to tell the user, hey, you will get this minus 10 USDC because it's taken from you because somebody is paying gas. We don't even need to tell that to the user. The user is receiving in general more because, again, as I said, like the trade is much more sophisticated, and they don't even need to get into this detail because it doesn't exist in the first place, and they bear the responsibility of putting the transaction on chain.
Right. Okay. So what I was gonna ask is if the transaction amount is equal or smaller than the gas, then I'm guessing that just wouldn't go through because it wouldn't make sense, would it?
Yes, because nobody's going to take it. For instance, now
Right.
our API will, I think there's something like a 30% minimum between like the gas and like the trade. In any way, it's not good for the user. But of course, it can be an attack vector where you can have a malicious actor just attacking, draining basically the gas tank, like the wallet that pays the gas. They can attack it constantly. There's no incentive in reality, but since it's theoretical and in any way is not good for the user to like pay half in gas, it's a use case that is discarded.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, I don't think there's a big use case for someone wanting to exploit that, but some people just want to exploit it because they want to exploit it.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with what's happened to the Internet Archive Wayback Machine recently?
No, I'm not.
So Internet Archive is this place where they take snapshots of
Yes,
the
yes.
internet, and you can go back far back as websites. You can see like what YouTube looked like in 2005 and so on. And it's been under attack for the past few weeks. Like you also had like JavaScript errors like popping up on the website, like all sorts of exploits. Um, with hackers threatening to take down Internet Archive permanently, and I'm like how shitty of a human being do you have to be to attack like
Yeah.
things like Internet Archive, which is like kind of like on par with Wikipedia. It's an open
Yeah.
source, not for profit organization that just works to keep an archive of the internet. um, the only motivation that I can think of potentially is that because it takes snapshots of most websites, you could have forums or discussions or things that were said by people that maybe they no longer want them to be publicly accessible.
Ah, yeah. Could be. Yeah. Yeah.
So it could be that, but yeah, it's just a weird one.
Yeah. Strange. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me what's on the horizon for you guys at Paraswap in the next few months. What's the battle plan? Obviously, there's the launch for Delta. What else is coming up?
Yeah, the V2 is really the most exciting thing we're looking forward in the very short term. So obviously, end of this month, early next month. I mean, we are almost the last week of October. And moving forward, the goal is to try to scale because now it's very simple, like really, really, it's simple as it could be. There's one solver agent, as you call it, behind the scenes. And now the goal is to build a variety of agents. One use case we're excited about is to have AI agents. That's how like the agent name came in, and for everything aggregation, because right now what we do, we manually build integrations and we manually build algorithms, which is fine. It's been working great. But I think that machines can beat humans in this kind of things because we can give
Right.
the machines like AI agents, we give them very, very specific instructive specifications like here is like a matrix of metrics and give me the best possible price, or here is historical data about liquidity pools and there is a new liquidity pool and you have the formulas and you have all of this, build me a smart integration on the fly that you can reuse. And I think the future of aggregating data like as we do it right now at Paraswap manually, it can be at some point delegated to AIs like AI agents that can generate those algorithms and generate smart integrations on the fly. Because there are many times we don't go as deep in an integration simply because it may take like a month or two because you have like some math that, let's say in curve where only 2 3 people can write and only maybe 5 10 people can understand at
Right.
least right away. So it will take us some time to deconstruct the math and understand how things work. But I think AI can do this much better. So looking maybe to partner with someone. We already talked to a few people, but also I mean it's a big use case. But it's not just that. Like the goal of Delta is to be like this hub for trading. And it can be for like normal trading, but it can be for other use cases because there is also this principle of hooks. It was publicized a lot by Uniswap, but it's not nothing new in reality. Is you can do something before you trade, when you trade, like the trading, and after you trade, where new use cases can become possible, where you can like do arbitrage, like add liquidity, or like do more sophisticated liquidity provisioning, or build completely new use cases that you haven't thought about. So I think one of the focus will become a lot on building the best possible developer tools for ParaSwap Delta users.
That's really cool. It sounds really exciting, and I can't wait to see how that develops. I think it's going to be a fantastic time. Um,
Yeah.
if people want to apply for the beta currently, or if they want to just be in the know for the release, where might they go? What are the socials or the website that they could
Yes,
check out?
the best place where we put all the information and the most up-to-date place is Twitter. It's X. So x.com/paraswap has all the information. And yeah, they can also follow me at Mooney. I can give you the handle in case they want to reach out to me. But Paraswap X handle is the place that is the most active, I would say, in the Paraswap ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the conversation, Mounir. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you enjoy the winter holidays, and I hope the cutting of the hair goes well. um,
Thanks a lot, Andre. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you. And if post release, I would love to have another conversation with you to see how it's all gone. So I would love to have you back. The door is always open. Just give me a shout.
Obviously, yeah. Thank you. We'll do.
Awesome. Have a fantastic rest of your day. See you.
Thank you. Thank you.